as well as any vendors, if it's as simplistic as possible, not so prescriptive, because when it becomes so prescriptive, it boxes us into specifics. And I think that's what this has done so much, is that it's so prescriptive that we have no room to operate from.
I think Chloe's point about, and Mike's point about, maybe when we take things like this in the future, we create some kind of committee, subgroup to kind of hash it out and bring us a more complete product back. Because this is part of a transition of legal firms as well.
Shall we do that right now, or
there's a lot of stuff. Well, we need a. All right, so you've withdrawn your motion, you've withdrawn your second. So we need a motion. So my motion that I'd like to see would be to table, but put whatever caveats you want to put in there for future action. So is anyone prepared to make a motion on the future of this item?
Motion to table to the second meeting of October, with the ability for 2 council members to meet with staff and or legal.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Okay. Discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Since we don't actually have a extensive transit vendor permit, what standards do we use to apply to transit vendors that we do get and food trucks that we do get?
The answer to that question.
So it's just on the ordinance,
Yeah.
nothing extra?
Further discussion? All right, there being none, all in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Next item is consideration action on local motion and spend the district special event open container district. Alexia Ryan of Beer Girl is requesting Mayor and Council's approval on the open container district for the upcoming local motion and spend the district special events scheduled for September 22nd. On map of the proposed open container area is attached for review. Got all that area in red. So is anyone prepared to make a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the outline open container district for local motion 2018, scheduled for September 22nd.
All right, motion, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All right, there being none, all in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is consideration action on a mural for the Jess Lucas Whiting Park Public Restroom Building. Lotus Eaters Club is a creative collective of designers, illustrators, and animators, specializes in murals, AR experiences, and traditional and digital illustration. They have also developed an app using augmented reality. That's a pretty cool place to be, augmented reality. Technology, which creates interactive pieces of art, i.e. their mural on Beltline over North Avenue. Orpheus Brewing and Lotus Eaters Club have created a collaboration beer that will be available at the Locomotion Arts Festival. Because of that, the Board of Local Motion approached Lotus Eaters to ask if they would consider doing a live art demonstration during the festival. Lotus Eaters have agreed, and Local Motion will pay for paint, supplies, and artist stipends. In order to leave the city of Hapeville with something tangible that adds to the artistic fabric of the neighborhood, Local Motion is proposing a mural to be painted on the wall of the public restroom building inside the Jess Lucas Park. This will give the artists maximum festival time to complete their work. Inside the park will be open from 11 a.m. till 10 p.m. and provide good exposure between the food court, beer tents, and the kids zone. Food, beer, and kids, what a combination.
I have the proposed the artwork that they're
Kids will.
That's augmented reality right there.
It's the wall adjacent to, perpendicular to the entrance to the bathroom.
That's
Short
walking
wall.
from the gazebo.
Okay, gotcha.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion on the side.
West. Motion to approve.
Is there a
Second.
Second discussion?
Thank you.
All right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is time change for a regular meeting. This is our first reading. Mayor and council have agreed to discontinue having a 6 p.m. work session prior to the first Tuesday of the month regular meeting and moving the meeting up to 6 p.m. According to City Charter, Chapter 4, Section 2-403, the mayor and council shall fix the date and time of regular meetings of the mayor and council by ordinance, and there should be at least one regular meeting each month. The ordinance updating the time is attached to first reading. The resolution to discontinue the 6 p.m. work session will be included in on the October 2nd meeting agenda for approval. That will stand as first reading, unless anybody has any changes they would like to see. Pretty quick cut.
So we're not required to pass second reading in order to,
No, this is first reading, so we'll have a second reading.
but we can go ahead and make the change at the October 2nd? or
No, that'll be what it'll be considered.
Okay.
Okay. All right, next item is discussion initiated by Mayor Holman on implementing rules for public comments and presentation. I've initiated a discussion with City Council on implementing rules for public comments and presentations to help proceed with regular business in an orderly and expedient fashion. I've attached a draft public comment rules. Crystal and I have met and talked through this, and we feel like we have a some fair guidelines, but I'm looking for input from anyone. If y'all have any questions or comments or concerns, please share, and we can bring this up for action at a future time.
More of an infrastructure perspective, but I've seen some municipalities use a visible clock. Would that be appropriate in this case, or is she just sitting there with a stopwatch?
You would need a timer of some sort.
Okay.
A timekeeper to set that.
But we're not taking any action?
No, it's just for information. We talked about it at the retreat, so this is just follow up on that item. All right, next item is consideration and action on the E911 model resolutions and authorize the mayor to sign documents. During the 2018 legislative session of the Georgia General Assembly, the legislature passed House Bill 751, which revamps how E911 funding will be accomplished in the state of Georgia. Governor Deal signed this bill into law on May 7, 2018. As a result of the enactment of this law, each local government that operates a public safety answering point, PSAP, needs to adopt new resolutions concerning post-paid and prepaid 911 fees. Service suppliers will begin aggregating and remitting their collected 911 fees to the Georgia Department of Revenue beginning on January 1, 2019 through a contract with the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority. Wireline, postpaid, wireless, and voice-over internet protocol fees will continue to be distributed based on the same formula as before. Prepaid will continue to be distributed based on the same formula as well. However, the prepaid remittances will be delivered to the local governments monthly as opposed to the current annual distribution in October. Attached in our agenda tonight are the E911 resolutions for approval along with a letter from the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority. Is anyone prepared to make a motion on this item?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, is there a second? Second. Discussion? All right, there being none, all in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Next item up is discussion initiated by Councilman Adams about enacting the city's, enforcing the city's yard debris policy. Councilman Adams has initiated a discussion on yard debris as it has gotten out of hand and has overtaxed the community services team tremendously. By enforcing resident compliance with the yard debris policy, community services can more effectively task human and capital resources and can meet a broader range of the city needs. Councilman Adams?
Yes, I brought this up for discussion because as we all can go throughout the city, we can see that there's a lot of debris that's just outlying out there that's basically taking over the streets. And I think that it's time for us to get a better handle or grasp on that. And also, according to our solid waste policy, section 62-2-4, disposal of rubbish, it basically states that all rubbish defined within this section shall be bagged and secured in either a commercial or yard type plastic bag and placed on the property in a location that's adjacent along the front property line sidewalk. And that's not what's happening. Not only if it's not happening, it's also taxing our community services department, whereas that community services is requiring at least 3 FTEs cut out to deal with this on a daily basis. And in order for us to positively affect the need for needing to add 3 additional employees to help maintain this, we think that I think this is a more feasible way of combating that need. So we won't have to budget for that for budget next year. That if we're able to get a grasp on it now, effective spring or March of 2019, we could curve out having to add additional staff in the community services department.
And you're talking for leaves as well?
For leaves and all that stuff, that should be bad. That's all a part of rubbish in this section here. And also that all branches, limbs, shrubbery shall be cut into lengths of 5 feet or less and not over 5 inches in diameter. And my recommendation is to have those bundled as well in order to better serve our community services department.
There's been a long-standing just kind of process of especially with leaves, people raking them out to the curbs. So it's going to take a tremendous educational process to let us know or to let everyone know that we're going. I mean, the rules are on the books and they have to. They just haven't been enforced. We've got the lovely machine that goes by and vacuums all those leaves up. So, but I mean, I agree. I have a neighbor that cut down a tree. Her logs that are about that big around have been sitting out. We've kind of spoiled our people, haven't we, Lee?
That's right.
In that if you put it out, most of the time we'll pick it up. But I agree, it does need to. We do need to get rid of some of this stuff because it is terrible.
Yeah, I was over at Virginia Park last weekend, and it's like a pile that has been no slight to the community service department, but don't know who cut it down. But there's a pile of rubbish that's just sitting there, and it's gone down. But it had been there for how long? What we were told? 3 weeks. Yeah.
I have sort of like the inverse question, because I can see one of two things happening. People are educated, they start putting things in bags, start getting taken to the street correctly, in this case. On the flip side, this is more like an HFD question, say you start having piles upon piles upon piles of wooden rubbish, tree limbs, etc., that are not disposed of properly and or broken down and bagged. Like, do you see possibly this turning into fire hazards in the back corners of property, or again, how would you mitigate that if
Normally, the only time we see stuff like that is usually right when the school gets out. When they bag stuff up or leave stuff out like that, you have the kids that go by and do stuff. But other than that, we haven't run a lot of those type files.
And I would take that would be applicable to both bagged or unbagged.
correct?
Yes. If I leaves burn just as fast as fire.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say, like, somebody taking 500 limbs and piling up in the corner of their property becomes a fire hazard in and of itself if they do not bring them to the street and bag them.
The only other thing to consider when looking at this is with the leaf truck, correct me if I'm wrong, Lee, but don't we compost that?
We do, but if that lot's gonna go away with development,
Right.
that's gonna end too.
I see.
And the big thing about this too is, all of our equipment is over 15 years old. We're gonna need a new garbage truck, a new leaf truck.
Yeah.
East Point gave us one and we fixed it up. And a possible gravel truck, so you're looking at almost $500,000 in equipment. And, you know, we have 3 walking trails now, 7 playgrounds. We've added a lot of different things, and we can't address the signage is another. We can't address that like we used to. We don't have.
Right. You don't have the staff.
Right, because it takes us on a huge pile, it may take us an hour and a half or 2 hours at one house.
With two men on the job.
That's 3 men.
Three.
Picking it up with forks and backhoes, we call it. And it's getting to where we even had a U-Haul truck that came up, opened the thing up, started dumping leaves out from another city. Because they know we will pick anything up. But now it's kind of getting to where we can't handle everything else. And now equipment's old, so.
Well, it would take, we should probably have a town hall before we pull the trigger on it, just to use that to roll it out, show people what that's gonna look like. Because,
One of the cities that we actually are comparable to in the same service, they just upped their rates, which is, they're at $47 now for their service. And that's loosely pickup, that's picking up everything. And that's a
and if we can go to $47, we can afford to do it, right?
Right, I don't think anybody really wants to go to that. All we're asking is don't throw everything, don't cut a tree down and put it all out at one time. Put a little bit out in bags, one every day if you want, and we'll still come by. We'll do unlimited. We're just asking help to have it bundled or bagged.
I feel like this thing that I see, frankly, is it's new development and or refurbishment of an old house occurs and tree limbs get prettied up. House looks very appealing. It looks good for the real estate photos because they're not taking a picture of the pile of trash that they have on the street. But you have a lot of sort of unintended consequences of refurb and cleaning homes where they are assuming that what they see at other homes is the norm.
Is there a proposed, what was your timeline again, Mark?
I say spring
Spring of
of 2019. By that timeline, I think that it will give an opportunity to educate appropriately.
I think once the policy, and I agree with Councilman Adams bringing this forward tonight, once the policy is in, we feel like and we've had reasonable time to implement the full policy. Certain residents do continue to violate that. They need to be perhaps given a list of private vendors that will come and remove their debris. There needs to be a program where someone goes to the door and says, we cannot pick this debris up, it's not according to our code. You'll need to contact a private vendor to have this taken care of.
It would be much better to do it for education
Yeah, but
ticketing.
we're going to have, and I'm not talking about ticketing, I'm just talking about informing.
face-to-face contact.
Informing, sorry.
I know,
We'll still have some violations.
when I was younger and we had waste management, but when they switched from picking up loose debris to bag debris, if you had your loose debris, they put a notice on your door that said we no longer pick this up. So that could
We're going to have to have some problem. We have time.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on this item? Okay. Next item up is discussion initiated by Councilman Adams on conducting a noise decibel study. According to Community Services Director Lee Sutton, the cost estimate to conduct a noise decibel study is $8,000. This would include a land use survey, field measurements, modeling existing conditions, a 20-year horizon, and the designing of a noise wall to abate noise impacts as defined by GDOT and Federal Highway Administration. A traffic study would need to be conducted since GDOT would need the existing 20-year projected traffic volumes, including truck percentages, in order to accurately model the noise wall if noise levels required. All previous road altering projects, HOV lane additions along the I-85 stretch were canceled by GDOT, which means the funding for the project would primarily require local funding. GDOT will only help projects if the project is part of their road system. The last cost estimate for the construction of a wall the city received was $3+ million, depending upon the height of the wall. And Councilman Adams, I assume you're speaking of the I-85 corridor?
Correct.
I was meeting with one of our local real estate agents on a client's house the other day on Forest Hills Drive, and the noise wall on Forest Hills Drive is far from adequate as well.
And
actually, they stated that they were having difficulty selling the house because when potential buyers were hearing the noise, it scared them off. So I think if we're going to look at that, 75, even though there's a wall there,
Let's roll it in.
it's not adequate. So.
And the reason why I want to bring this up about what's for the noise decibel study for 8,000, I think that there'll be money well spent to increase the quality of life of those residents along that area there. It's hundreds of residents that's adversely affected by the traffic noise going up and down the I-85 corridor, and I'm sure 75 as well. Previously, the funding was approved over what, 17, 18, 19 years ago?
Hasn't been quite that long ago. It's been,
It was 2004.
well, it could,
It has been about,
it could have been. It was when I first came on council.
Yeah, it's
So,
been a while.
It's been almost 21 years.
yeah. So, and I'm just trying to get this back on the docket to get some momentum on it because it's been stagnant for a while. And I can see that the quality of life of the residents in the affected areas, Hope Street, Oakdale, Sims, Campbell, Steelwood, Hopefield,
Gordon.
yeah, all of
Streets.
them are affected in that area there. And we just want to make sure that we are able to do something to enhance the livability of that area.
And then to further exasperate the problem, GDOT has found this new affinity for chopping down trees. So they take your natural sound barrier.
What would the result of the study be, though? Who would we send it to?
I think it'll be a part of the petition with signatures as far as the letters of support, just like previously before the decibel study was done, before we sent that to Congressman Lewis's office in order to garner support.
So that's the similar path you
Yes.
proposed.
Very, very similar to what we did back in the day with Helen King, Charlotte, and Pleasant Charlotte.
Yep, I remember it well.
And we were all queued up, ready to go, and how in the world they canceled that project with as much traffic as on that road is beyond me.
Lee, do you think that they would give us a better rate if we did both ends? That's
Good
what
question. They've had two projects on this, that one way back and then one more recently. It was tied to the HOV lanes, and they took that out. And one of the things also we want to do too is try to reach out to LRC, see if we can do any funding through them. Because I do know they are funding one.
Well, I think the grassroots effort is the way to do it. Because it almost fits into the stereotypical image of the South Side. We're always the last. I mean, there are walls all over the place, except 85 is the only major stretch of highway I'm familiar with. And a lot of roadways that does not have a sound, at least 75's got a sound wall.
So you get down to
85 has
Palmetto.
nothing.
So you get down to Palmetto, and then you got
Right.
streets of walls for.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they got
5
huge
miles.
walls all over the place, but they've left us out, so. I think the grassroots effort, they can find a project to do to tie it to, as far as I'm concerned. But I think it takes a little hell raising to get that done. Good.
it should.
Okay, any other, are you looking for?
I'm looking
I guess
for-
we need to bring it back up to vote on.
Yeah, I'm looking for council approval as it is an expenditure, yes.
Would that expenditure exceed 8,000 if it's both interstates?
I'm sure it would.
Fee would, yes.
I'll have to check. I'm
Probably.
pretty sure.
Can you double check and come back to us with a revised number? And
Put an action item as well.
I guess it's a consensus that we won't want to move forward for having this on future agenda.
I would recommend, I would like to see that on the next agenda.
Yes.
Well, you good with it, Mark? Mike?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so next item is discussion initiated by Councilman Horsley on multifamily inspection ordinance. The city of Duluth recently passed a multifamily housing inspection ordinance that states the following: to correct and prevent conditions that adversely affect or are likely to adversely affect the life, health, safety, and general welfare of occupants of multifamily rental housing, to provide minimum standards necessary for the health and safety of the occupants of multifamily rental housing, to provide standards for maintenance of multifamily rental housing, to prevent blight, and to preserve the value of land and buildings throughout the city. Councilman Horsley?
Yes, sir. Duluth, Doraville, and Roswell, to my knowledge, have recently in the last year started working with the Atlanta Apartment Association to draft language that brings a little bit of control as it relates to inspections of multifamily households. Talked with Bill Aiken from Duluth. I believe he plays a similar sort of merged role between a Dr. Patterson and a Lee Summith, it sounded like. In chatting with him, he was saying how they worked off of Doraville and Sandy Springs ordinance to create a fee schedule, $100 per unit for units that had 4 or more units owned by one owner, and that said owner also by state statute OCGA 4813-5 would have to have an occupational tax license. They, in further discussing with Mr. Akins from Duluth, he was talking about how an initial desire was to do duplexes and triplexes, but the International Code Maintenance, I'm probably butchering the name of the ICM, puts quadruplexes into a different sort of level of building usage just by code in itself. And in particular with the 48-13-5 from the Annotated Code of Georgia, basically what they went down to, instead of taking the sort of broad brush stroke, was looking at multifamily households that happen to have a leasing office and or the owner within the city acting as a leasing office, even if it's not attached to said unit. So,
what prompts the inspection?
Prompting in the inspection, the sheer existence of said units. Believe they are given a waiver for 5 years if it's new construction. And I think the language that the Atlanta Apartment Association was pushing, which is essentially Duluth's ordinance, also has the modification of if there was recent renovations and there was a building inspection code done at the completion of said development, that there would also be 5 years. So say, for example, I believe Daniel Apartments is getting some upgrades. If this was in place, the inspection that would occur post updates would hold for 5 years. But essentially, the city, the municipality of Doraville or Roswell, Duluth in this case, has a list of the multifamily units. There are 4 or more units with a leasing office.
Can I ask who does the inspections for them?
Duluth said from a staffing perspective that they have to ramp up over the next 3 years. In the meantime, the code allows for a private certified building inspector to be hired by the owner. Said certification is held by a independent, I mean, I don't know if they certifying body for building inspectors, but there's ethical codes that they have to follow, and if they are caught falsifying a documentation of needed improvements per household, internal and external, they could be fined up to $1,000 per unit and $1,000 per falsified document. The eventuality of what they're wanting to go to, per my discussion with him and then reading what I believe Roswell was doing, is moving it to more of a code maintenance function. So code in their city is handled out separate from the police department. It's under more of their public works. I guess in the example of hate bill, us outsourcing would be like the Safeco, I believe is the name of the company. So I think they sort of anticipated that question and built in sort of a de facto fine, and also those building inspectors can no longer do work in the city of Duluth if they're caught falsifying documents for a period of time.
How old is their ordinance?
August.
Has it been legally challenged yet? I'm concerned about the constitutionality of this because you're bifurcating one segment of society and holding them to a different standard that you don't hold others.
Sure. Roswell, I believe, attempted to do this with single-family rentals 2 years ago and were challenged. And so that's why sort of the governing body, if you will, for Metropolitan Atlanta apartment multifamily units, the Atlanta Apartment Association, is working to provide a sort of a buffer and legal language that is more in tune with not being unconstitutional by bifurcating it out. So in that case, it's
I know that Marietta, and Andy, you might know the answer to this, Marietta or Cobb County, somebody got challenged on the constitutionality of something similar to this, but it's been several years ago.
It was a while ago, yes, sir. Without looking at this language here,
Okay.
the details will be in the language.
Could this be something that a potential community development department could oversee, even inspections for new development as well?
I think that's a discussion far down the road yet, but I'm just trying to provide sort of a baseline to push towards.
I support the goal. I just don't want us to get in any constitutional trouble because I think we're heading right down that road.
And frankly, that was my first question out of my mouth when I was talking to Mr. Akins, and I think they're at the baby steps of this.
Their ordinance hadn't been on the books long enough
To be challenged.
Correct.
challenge.
But-
So we're going to have to monitor some of these new ordinances.
Sure, but I think the other two cities have been for at least 1 year, and don't think they would have adopted that in hindsight. They were